Good evening, everyone. Today we will be covering the Army values. My name is Precious Baldwin. I'd like to introduce my SGL, Staff Sergeant Sanquist, for being here today and being here during this presentation. The classification for this presentation is unclassified. So, on the agenda for today, we'll cover the introduction, then that'll lead into the Army values and how they are key to the Army structure, how the Army values set the standard, how the Army values influence decision making, how the Army values apply to civilian life after you transition out of the military. Then we'll go into the conclusion, and then I will open up the floor for any questions that anybody may have. So the introduction. During this brief, I will explain the 7 Army values and the ones that particularly stick out to me and what I feel like would be the definition of those. We will talk about how they are the key to Army structure, how they help build the foundation of the Army and structure everything with that around it. We will explain how the values set the standard, how soldiers will hold themselves to that standard and nothing less will be accepted. And then how they can be applied in many different ways in the Army and also outside the Army for when you transition out of military life. So the 7 Army values are honor, integrity, respect, selfless service, duty, loyalty, and personal courage. So some of my favorite ones would be like integrity, always do the right thing. If you see somebody struggling, pick up carrying some groceries, help them out. If you see somebody drops a wallet, pick up the wallet. Honor, always honor the uniform. You sign the dotted line for a reason. That's why we're here, it's what we do. So always make sure you look good. Always hold up that honor for the people that serve before you, the people that will serve after you. Selfless service. Same thing, an honor in a way. You know, you voluntarily signed up to join the military. Duty, you know, is what we do. It's what you pick to do in the Army. That is your duty. You will uphold the standard for that. Nothing less will be accepted. And then loyalty. You sign that dotted line for an extended amount of time. You got to stick with it. It's a part of the loyalty perspective. You don't sit there and try to cut shortcuts to try to get out. So how the Army values are key to the Army structure. They are the first thing that a soldier learns within the Army. I remember my first day of going into 30th AG down to Fort Benning, and when you're walking in, on the pillars, when you're walking in, each pillar has an Army value on it. And then as soon as you walk into the door, into the waiting area, there's a big picture or frame on the wall that has all the Army values on there, the definition of them. And then when you're sitting in that waiting area, you're reading your blue book, you're flipping through the blue book, Army values are also in the blue book. And then when you start basic training, when you're done with your reception phase, at the end of your 3-week red phase, guess what's on the test? The 7 Army values. So obviously, it's important to the Army in some way, to where they put them and implement them in everything that you may do in the Army. And as it is quoted in Army.mil, soldiers learn that these values in detail during basic combat training, as I had just covered. From then on, they live their lives every day, and everything they do, the Army values will be with them, whether they're on the job or off. Jeff Ross, which we will get into later on into this slideshow, is a perfect example on how the Army values are a key piece to the Army structure. He explains in his article with Forbes how the Army values made him rethink his life and hold himself to a higher standard. That way he would look more professional among other people. So setting the standard, Jeff Ross quoted in 2017, "The Army taught me that no matter what, I had to hold myself to a higher standard." So when you come in to the Army and then he left, he realized that in order for him to really stick out to the general public, he had to hold himself to a higher standard. He didn't cut no corners. He didn't do anything the cheap way. He followed the Army values and stuck them on there. So personal courage and duty, in my personal opinion, show how they set the standard for a soldier on how he or she should carry themselves in a professional way as an individual, but also show how they should carry themselves among their peers, not only in a squad, but as a company as well. The Army values set the standard by showing new soldiers, like in basic training, AIT, things like that, how they will carry themselves as a member of a team. Make their company and their team look good by showing how personal courage and duty show how they can set the standard. How you can apply the Army standard, the Army values, the Army values in civilian life, whether you did one contract or even 20 plus years in the Army. When you leave, when it comes to anything you do, if you're selling your car to somebody and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna charge them a little bit more than what I really think it's worth, integrity would play into part. Do you really want to sell this guy something that isn't really worth what you're giving him? Might want to, keep it truthful, keep it serious. With the Army values, showing how to use them and carry yourself in a professional way stays with you throughout your life. You can usually tell when you're going to Walmart, you can see somebody, they were in the military. You can just tell the way they walk, the way they carry themselves, how they talk, handle themselves in any situation, whether it be them in the wrong or they conducted something in a bad way. Regardless of the situation, at least one of these values can be used. You can always use these values. If you're in the wrong, integrity comes into play. All right? If you see somebody, broke the law and police are coming up for people for questions, it's when honor kind of comes into play too. Hold your honor up, show who did the wrong. Regardless of the situation in which one finds himself, you can always use the Army values. So Jeff Ross, I'll get into a little bit of detail about him. So Jeff Ross served in the 133rd Battalion. So you guys should, hold some honor to that. This guy came from where we are from. He came from the state of Iowa or Minnesota or Wisconsin, but he served within our battalion of the 133. So Jeff Ross, in this quote, also with Forbes, as someone who served 9 years in the Army National Guard, which includes a 17-month deployment to Iraq, which would have been the 2005 to 2007 deployment that they had, I know these values well. And even though I've been out of the military for many years now, I still cling tightly to the military values and how they have taught me to be a man. I would even argue that over time, these same values helped me become a better businessman and stronger entrepreneur. So that just shows that even though he's out of the military for quite some time, as he says, these Army values helped him become a better man, better businessman, showed him how to run his business the proper way, the clean way, and no matter what, he kept it the right way. And no matter how long someone leaves the military, the Army values will always stick with them in any situation. So for my conclusion, the Army values provide the structure for the Army. So like I said earlier, they're the foundation. You start with a foundation and then you create the building. So they provide the structure for the Army. The Army values set the standard for soldiers from day one that they get into basic and are shown how to carry themselves in a professional way from then on in their lives or in their career. So that shows, like I said, the Army values are really important. And the Army values can be applied in civilian life in any situation because no matter the situation, you can always reflect on the Army values to help figure out the right way to handle it. So now we are at the end of the slides. I will open the floor for any questions that anybody may have. No questions? Okay. So this is the reference page for anybody who wants to go look at any of the quotes that I brought in. And if you also want to see any more details on Jeff Ross, there's the website.